Long gone is the day of the long form show. There once was a time when shows seemingly just ran forever and ever and ever, show after show, episode after episode, and every week you knew at that time, on that day, you were getting a show you wanted to watch. That's happening all across media, Western and Eastern. But one thing I really wanted to focus on this time was how that trend has sort of died off in shonen anime. When you think of shonen, you probably think of some of the more classic long forms such as GBZ, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, essentially all the big three. Some of you may think Fairy Tail. Some of you newer ones may think Black Clover. But there seemingly is not a lot of what I call long form shonen anime. And what I mean by that is essentially the show runs until the showrunners need a hiatus. The show runs from week to week to week, adapting the source material as quick as it can, getting through beat by beat by beat, and throwing in filler when they just either they have caught up to the source material, or the writers need a break from doing all the high intense action and storytelling. You think of your more popular contemporary shonen these days, your My Hero Academias, your Attack on Titans, your Jujutsu Kaisens, your Mushoku Tenseis. These shows all run on a similar seasonal format, where they will do 12 to 24 episodes at a tick, and then come back 3 to 6 months later with the next season. And while that's fine for most shows that are of shorter in length, these shonens with, hundreds of chapters of content, I don't understand why they don't. I mean, I do understand why they don't, go through and adapt everything. But to me, that makes the viewing experience so much greater. I enjoy being able to come in and watch whatever anime I want to, week to week to week, and progress through the story at a regular pace. I don't like having to wait 3 months to get the resolution of an arc or to get started on the next one. I want to go right into the next bout of content. And this gets into the sort of weekly release versus binge kind of argument, right? Like some shows I think are very easy to binge. For example, I just watched the 2019 remake of Dororo, basically in 4 sittings, and that's 24 episodes, and it's really good. But I was able to pound through that quickly because 24 episodes isn't that daunting. If I think of a show, say like One Piece, which has at this point over 1,000 episodes, that gets real daunting. Like, sure, I could sit down and watch One Piece at a faster rate than it is getting released, and eventually catch up to where it is now. But I just don't feel like I have the energy to do that. Jumping into a show so late in its life cycle, I feel like I missed out on the opportunity years ago, and I'm beyond the pale where it would make sense for me to just jump into it. Now, I do know people who have tried. Rather, I think binging works for shorter shows, like when JoJo's Bizarre Adventure releases its Stone Ocean pieces in 12, 12 episode blocks. That works because the JoJo Part 6 is probably going to end up being no less than 50 episodes. That's not that long. I can understand it being, it's not a release in a 12 by 12 by 12 basis. But when it comes to shows like My Hero, that's going to probably be over 100 episodes. Or JJK, which if they go at the pace they should, it's also going to take them over 100 episodes. I don't see why it just makes sense to do this. Like, I think it helps for burnout, right? Animators and creators, the people who work on these shows, don't have to stress themselves to release every episode a week by week by week. We see how that works sometimes with Dragon Ball Super, right? Where the animation early on was god awful, even though they weren't really adapting anything new. They were simply taking what the movies did and bringing it to the episode. But what I kind of get to is like how we've come from these long form shows that just air and air and air until they're done to shonens being like every other season where they release on a 12 to 24 schedule. Like the change was kind of drastic, right? Like it didn't happen overnight. Like you went from Dragon Ball and Slayers and Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter, all these shows with 60, 70, 80, 100, sometimes 200, 230, 240, 250, 270 episodes. Just run and run and run until they needed to stop when they needed to take a break. I mean, you saw that with, what, Fairy Tail's got, 500 episodes divided amongst 3 seasons because they got canceled. Or Like for example, Black Clover took a hiatus, a few months back, and they haven't come back yet. But they ran through over 100 episodes of content. I think that while I prefer that, I understand why it's gone away. But I think if you're going to do something like a shonen that is just inherently long, you kind of need to do it all at once rather than breaking it up. Because I feel like it kind of disturbs the flow of the show. I feel like the show is so like arcs aren't typically this clean like break of like 12 to 24 episodes. It's something typically much longer than that. Like for example, the Cell arc is much longer than that. The Boo arc's over 100 episodes. So how would you break Boo up into 4 24 segments, or somewhere like 8 12? Like it's just unreasonable to try to do something like that. I think if you're going to do a shonen, you should just do as much as you can before you need to take a break. I don't I don't particularly like this seasonal format. I think it works well with shows like Slice of Life or comedies that can kind of just adapt a little bit and it makes sense because there's no like overarching like plot that really matters to the grand narrative. Like if you're watching something like Prison School, you do not need to adapt that all at once. You can do it in bite-sized bits and kind of do like the jokes and episodes you want to get through. You don't really have to worry about the overarching narrative of Prison School. Not really the point. But when it comes to something, for example, like My Hero is a grand narrative that changes and develops, and they've done a good job breaking it up. But I feel like it's easier and more conducive to see their growth if we get to see it happen week to week to week over over a year or so, or over 2 years, and just kind of see them grow. And rather than breaking it up amongst the 6 years, over 6 years, My Hero's been running. I think it kind of makes the audience lose just a little bit of interest having to wait rather than getting it constantly. Because I feel like as long as you come with those hit moments, like a fight against Overhaul or Shigaraki or any of the main villains, it works. But when you have long, like, lapses in the show, I can see where it hurts and you kind of want to take a break. Which is, I mean, filler has done that. Filler is what half of Naruto is. But, I mean, Japan and shonen anime is not the only thing. I've seen the sitcoms a la Friends or Seinfeld or George Lopez or name any sitcom from the 80s and 90s that has over 100 episodes in resyndication. That's not really a thing anymore. I mean, exist, but they're nowhere near as popular as they used to be. They used to be the staple of American television was the sitcom. I was getting around and seeing, you know, your favorite ragamuffin bandit characters go on their adventures from week to week, whether that be at a coffee shop at some, large New York apartment complex, or, a Latino family just trying to live in California. It's just different seeing how, like, things have changed. Because, like, me growing up, me and my dad used to watch a lot of TV shows. These aren't even sitcoms. These are like the dramas that would air on CBS or ABC or NBC, and you would come up and they'd be like 10 episodes, and then they'd reach their winter break, and you're like, what? From October to January, we're not getting any episodes. We'll meet you in, late January or early February. Like what? It was just annoying as a fan to see these shows air like 10 episodes and be done for 4 months and be like, oh, I guess we'll see you next time. And that just kind of was irritating, and I think that's transferred over to now. And I think like the bite-sized content has kind of worked out, like limited series, and like these 10 episode seasons have worked out for especially for streaming platforms, whether it be like their series for Jeffrey Dahmer that just came out, or a lot of the 6 episode limited series, the House of Targaryen, all the Marvel stuff that is very quick and short form. Get it done in a season, get it done quick, get the content, and get out. I think that's worked for them, but long gone is the day of the long form show where you can just sit down for a long time over a year and just enjoy the content, enjoy the characters you love seeing, interact week to week basis. I think that's a level of consistency we don't really get to see anymore, especially in the West and certainly in the East. Like I think that's an integral part of the experience, being able to just have something go on consistently. That way you can just know, like, hey, my shows may end, the sports I watch, the season may be over, but like at least I'll have some form of entertainment I can reliably count on week to week for a good amount of time. Make sure these shows take breaks, and sure they need a hiatus, to kind of like let the team, go on vacation or get a break from just working nothing on nothing but that show. But there's a lot of times where I'm like, I mean, it's just like it just works better in my opinion. And I think it's probably cheaper and better for the animators overall if they don't have to crunch and work on a show from week to week. But then that would just imply that the studios or the people in charge just need to hire more people so they don't have to work so hard. So they can, work on an episode and have it done reliably on a week to week format because a lot of the people who write the stories don't have that luxury. Like I'm sure Oda doesn't have the luxury of just not just not having the crunch. And I know he's got a lot of editors, but especially like Toriyama early on did not have the luxury of just sitting around and kind of getting stressed out. He had to consistently work week to week to week on Dragon Ball to get it out there. To sort of ground this back to my point, I think the long form show is gone. Not entirely. There will be shows that will do it. I'm sure when Black Clover returns, they will do the same thing as they have done, where they'll make a lot of episodes, take a break. Make a lot of episodes, take a break. But that always won't be the case. It seems like the trick of doing a season or two, a movie, season or two, a movie, is the trend it's taken. I mean, My Hero Academia's done it. Jujutsu Kaisen just did it. I'm sure a lot of these other studios are seeing this kind of thing, and you're like, that works, and it brings in a lot of money. Demon Slayer did it. Of just having a season or two come in, establish the fan base and the IP, and then having this bigger budget movie to draw people in and come to the theaters to go see it. And those movies are doing great right now. JJK's movie Zero did great. Mugen Train for Demon Slayer did amazing. Both Broly and Dragon Ball Superhero did great for that IP. It just feels like that's the money making opportunity at the moment, is to have you set up your story and then come out with a quick movie and then set up the story and continue with the story and have a quick movie come out. Just capitalize. I mean, My Hero's done it 3 times with its 3 movies coming out after seasons. It's a smart idea, and it's probably the way that most entertainment is going, of setting up the IP and then developing it and then coming out with a movie to grab on to its peak popularity and then re-establishing that IP, growing it a little bit more, bringing more hype in, and having another movie come out to just further its popularity. I think it's smart business, but it kind of detracts away from the overall enjoyment of the property. I am a guy who just likes to come in, at 8:30 on Wednesday, I got my favorite show coming on, and I can just sit here and watch it come out and enjoy it, and then get ready for the next week. And then if I have other shows that I want to binge that I either missed out on or not watching currently, I can come back and watch those on the other days or when I have time. But I like the idea of being able to know when I have slotted for the show I want to watch, being able to watch it, and then getting ready for the next week when it comes up. Not having to be like, oh, is that coming back anytime soon? Is like, is that coming back like this month or this year or this decade? In the case of something like Devil's a Part-Time or any of these shows that have been prolonged for 5+ years. Dragon Ball Super, or if Dragon Ball Super comes back and adapts the rest of the manga, I would want it to do it all at once, do all the content from the Moro and Granola arcs at once, rather than breaking it up for like 24 for Moro and 24 for Granola, or however much content they separate out. I think it flows better to have this narrative all come at you at once. For week to week, you can kind of build hype and build anticipation for these new fights and characters that we haven't seen before. I think that really works for Shonen, and I think that's kind of the way it needs to stay. Like for business opportunities, well, the way you're doing it now is working. But I think if they want to sustain it, it is better to release weekly. Now, I don't have any numbers behind that. I don't have any data. This is just my feeling as like a fan of the medium and the fan of a lot of the stories within it. Just to see it week to week and kind of get attached to these characters rather than having, a time of attachment, then forgetting about them for a year because their show's not coming back, and then a year later being like, oh yeah, I gotta get re-hyped for this, rather than just being in constant like awareness and hype mode, where like I can get more attached to the characters, more attached to the story, and kind of grow and learn with them along the way of like, oh, this is what he's got to deal with, this is what he's going on to. Meanwhile, if I have to wait a year or two for the next season to come out, I'm like, what was he doing last time? It's a lot of like rewatching and familiarizing yourself with the IP that you don't need to do if the show is coming out weekly and concurrently. this is all to say that I disagree with Chainsaw Man being 12 episodes, and it should definitely have just gone all the way through. Because if we're going 3 chapters an episode, we're gonna be here a while. We're gonna be here for at least another season or two if they keep doing it at 12. They're not gonna do it at 24. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, I ain't gotta wait 3 years for the next season of Chainsaw Man after this one ends. But here's to hoping. Chainsaw.